Okay, we'll start out with reports from council. Councilman Ed Waters.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the mayor and Air Affair for giving us some cool air in here. I saw them working over here 3 or 4 days in that heat getting it done, so we appreciate that. And we want to remind everybody again that it's illegal to ride bicycles and golf carts and things through the stop signs. They're still doing it constantly. So we don't want anything to happen to anybody. So just remind people when you see them, and no underage kids. If you don't have a driver's license, don't be driving a golf cart. See that too. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ed. Councilman Rick Fisher.
Just a couple of things. First off, just came from a little event here, so if you guys happen to see our neighbor Teresa Plotz, lives over on Pine Road, please make sure you congratulate her. She was just promoted to the rank of colonel in the United States Air Force. So she's having a little get-together over her place right now. Unfortunately, it coincided with our meeting here, so that's why we have a smaller crowd. Also, as far as the Parks Committee, Mary would be here tonight, but apparently she's still drying out from the dousing that the West Side gave her on Sunday. So she did want to say, though, they finished adding the new plants at Sundial, flip-flop planters over in front of the pool. So all the park landscaping has been done until this fall. We'll start getting over there. She also said we'll have another meeting on July 9th here in the clubhouse at 10 a.m. Discussing a few landscape improvements and then how that can be added now and overgrow the Spearwood. And she said make sure to thank you, Mike, for all of your cooperation and all those efforts.
All right, thank you, Rick. Jeff Terrell.
Nothing to report this week, Mayor.
All right. Susan Baker.
There it is. Nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Amanda Pembroke.
I don't have any updates, Mayor.
Oh my, y'all leaving all to me tonight.
I know what you're going to say, so I'll
So
let you
first
do it.
off, I want to say, the East did a great job in whipping the West rear end this year. So I am going to start with that. I don't know how Curtis can go buy him a trophy every year before it ever starts, but he ends up with a trophy. It's pretty sad you got to buy your own trophy instead of winning it or taking the flag. I remember when we used to have a flag over here in Jim Adams' front yard, and you had to actually go on enemy territory to capture that flag to win. So I'm not sure how y'all keep winning every year. It's self-declared.
We got 5 flags from the east side. They only got one of our signs, so 5-1.
I will say for the record, I put my jet skis in at the boat ramp this weekend, and coming back around East Shore, it sure looked like those Westies were getting their rear ends handed to them over on East Shore. Just saying. No, it was fun. A lot of people had a lot of fun. I don't recall anybody getting hurt, so that was a good thing. My report, boat ramp report. There is some good news about the boat ramp. Actually, great news. Yeah, I'm not one to brag about the work that we do, but I think you guys need to know this. In the beginning, we were going through a grant. We've been going through that grant since late 2018. Cheryl has worked very, very hard on that. Even before I became the mayor, they were in the middle of that thing. I was invited by a lady by the name of Cindy Butcher, who is Greg Bonin's right hand here in town. If you don't know Greg Bonin, he is in charge of our appropriations, which is our finance guy for the state of Texas as a state representative. Very nice man, very smart man, brain surgeon actually. But I got invited to a little 10-person meeting, and I went. Well, I was representing probably the smallest city in that meeting. I'll let him go around the room. Greg looks at me and he says, "Hey, why aren't you saying anything?" My comment was, "These cities are bigger. They need more than I want. What makes you want to help me?" And he just looked at me and said, "Frankly, Randy, every city in our county means something to me." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, it sounds good anyway." So I asked him if I could speak frankly, and I was very forward about this pain in the rear end called a boat ramp and a grant that we've been fighting for years that we haven't got. I made him very aware that boat ramp probably would have cost $250,000 7 years ago instead of almost $900,000, or right at $900,000. I let them know that I thought that smaller cities needed that grant money, and they make it really hard to get it. And it makes you're kind of discouraged of going after a grant sometimes, a big one, when you really need it, because it's so hard to get it. Well, when I left that meeting, I thought, he's not paying attention to me. Well, that wasn't true. A few months later, 1st of January, the grant started moving. We finished up part of that grant, which was the design phase. Cheryl was very excited about that. We ended up, a few months later, got in the construction part of that grant, and kind of stalled again. It's 90 days for that to happen. And during this time, they were going into session, and they were working on their budget. So Cindy had reached out to Amanda wanting to know, how much is this boat ramp going to cost? And so we talked. At that time, it was $850,000. That's the number we gave them. Well, maybe 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from Texas Parks and Wildlife and said, are you sitting down? No, I'm working. I'm not going to be sitting down. Just tell me the bad news, because I'm thinking we got to jump through another hoop. She said, well, you don't have to jump through another hoop. I don't think you're going to need a grant. Greg Bond budgeted your boat ramp in their funding this year for Texas Parks and Wildlife. It is a line item in their budget, in the state budget, that goes into effect on September 1st. So immediately she says, well, we can just cancel the grant. And I said, well, hold on, because when I gave them that number, now it's $53,000 more than that. Why cancel the grant? We've already qualified for it. What that means is, originally, we were going to be on the hook for 25% of that grant, which is about $279,000, thereabout, Cheryl. Now we're not going to be on the hook for 1 penny of that grant. They're going to fund that boat ramp 100%. They're going to use some of that grant money to bridge that gap in the price, and Clear Lake Shores isn't going to pay a penny for that boat ramp. So we just saved the city a whole ton of money. Just one of those things where you say, they're not going to listen to me. That meant a lot to me, very special to me, to know that I could go in there and talk to that man like he was sitting here in this room with us, and he listened and he did something about it. Not only did he do something about it, he made sure that everyone else approved that too. So that means a lot to our city. Along with what we saved the city, and Mike and Guillermo, who's here tonight, working on our study for the bridge and working quickly to get that put together as a project in the bond, we've saved the city over $2 million in this last year. And so all of these people is what it takes to do that. Us not just being here on Tuesday night at the meeting, going to things outside this city, working hard. I don't do it as much as Amanda does it. Every time I go somewhere, Amanda's either been there, or she is there, or she's left there and gone to another meeting. So she does it a lot more than I do. But we are out there promoting our city and fighting for our city and trying to save us as much money as possible. So when you, not to put any pressure on you, Susan, I know you're the new girl on the block, but when you take a seat up here, that's really what we need. We need somebody who's engaged 100%. And I believe the council you got right now is engaged 100%. And we are working really hard for our citizens in our city. We need that money more than anybody, because the last thing we want to do is come back and tax you guys for things. And we've been without that tax for a long time. So anytime we can get a state representative to listen to our needs and act on it, it's a good thing. There was something that came up, and you're going to have to help me with this. So some of you may have read about the election being able to be moved to November. But after talking to Dick, we don't have to move our election to November. We have a choice to keep it in May. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It just gives you the option to move it to November if you want to move it to November. Otherwise, it just stays at May.
Yeah, so that's something that passed this year. We're going to keep ours in May from what I understand. And if anything changes, we'll bring that back to council and they can make that decision. But I think we get better turnout in May for our city election and things of that nature. So for now, we're not looking at moving it, because once you move it, Once you move it, you can't bring it back. It has to stay there.
That's correct. It's a one-way street, so if you moved it to November, it would stay there. And you also have the option to move it to November anytime before the end of 2026.
Okay.
So just a quick question on that, Randy. Is there any advantage to moving it to November as far as cost to the city, since there's generally another election in November, or are we still on the hook for it?
You know, I haven't looked at that, Rick, to be honest with you. Maybe that's something we need to look at and see if we want to move it because it'll save the city some money, Mike. So we can look at that and see. We sure can. Haven't looked at that aspect yet. Just quoting what the law changed to. But we will look into that and get back to you. Want to touch one thing about the emergency meeting we had. Some banter back and forth on Facebook. I see some of it. I never answer it. But I want to set the record straight. Mike Cram had the authority to do that in an emergency situation. This building was rented out already. We have our meetings in here, and it was 89 degrees in here. Thank God Johnny Boltinghouse was the one who rented it over the weekend, and he called me directly because I do work for him, and he knows I'm the resident AC man. He said, Randy, it's 89 degrees. We got 2 nights to spend in this thing, 2 days. What can you do? I went to my shop. I got refrigerant. I got the unit running. It ran all weekend, and we got them through. I told Mike Monday morning, you have a situation on your hands. You need to get this handled. It is an emergency situation. We had, in most emergency meetings or special meetings, we have to call council back together. We're in one meeting a month for the summer so people can take vacations. So we really don't want to do that. We already had a workshop scheduled for Tuesday that week. We had 4 council people going to be present. It takes 4 council people in a special meeting to make any decisions, not 3. If you don't have 4, you can't do anything. Right or wrong, Dick?
Correct.
So at that point, Mike decided we need to do that. We're going to tell Christie. He went and got some bids. Yes, I bid. Of course I bid. I own the company. I can discount it as much as I like, and why would I let the city pay more money than they should pay? So yes, I bid on it and I got the job. Thank you for, not making a whole lot of profit, council, but that's not the point. The point is we needed to get it fixed right away, and we needed to do that, and we did that, and we did it in every right way. Instead of allowing him to do it in an emergency situation, I said, no, we're going to get bids. We're going to do it the absolute right way. So to put all that banter to rest, he did it exactly the way we should have done it. And we brought it to our city council to make that decision. And I know you jumped on Facebook, Susan, to defend us, but I don't feel like we need to be doing that because we are doing it right to start. Okay, I'm not reprimanding you for that at all. Please don't take it that way. I know why you did it, because we did do it the right way. We are trying our best to do everything the right way. And you're going to see us bring things to council that sometimes we don't need to bring to council. And Mike may say, hey, do we have to take that to council? And in some cases I say, yes, we should. So everybody is transparent and everybody knows what's going on up here at this city. If you have questions, I'm going to say it one more time. It's not the last time I'll have to say it, I'm sure. Don't go to Facebook. It's a bad place to get information because most of those people commenting do not know the rules to begin with. And they're just putting stuff out there. And then you watch somebody run with it and, well, why didn't they get 3 bids? Somebody said, well, how do you know they didn't? It gets to do this. It's a lot easier to call that man at the city and ask him, hey, did y'all get 3 bids? Yes, we did. It's open records. Would you like to see them? Because everything we do is in open records. We're not hiding anything. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. What we do for the best interest of the city, not for the best interest of me or my company. Okay? It's all done in the best interest of this city. And if somebody wants to get mad at me for saving the city $3,500 in one case or $5,500 in another, you can be mad at me for that. I don't care about that part. I'm good with that. I lay my head down on my pillow and I sleep good at night because I know I save this city as much money as I possibly can. With that said, I'll end my public comments and we will move on to Police Chief David Donaldson, who is not here tonight, so we'll take the Julie instead. Would you like to read what you have for us tonight, Miss Julie?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Chief decided to take some vacation time, that it was much needed, so he sends his regards. So our total summary of stats for June of 2025 are traffic contacts were 264, driving while intoxicated, 7, narcotic offenses, 0, accidents, 5, assault, family violence, 0, thank goodness, total arrests, 33, disturbances, 3, thefts, 7, resisting arrest, 1, undesirable, 2, assist other agencies, 4, sexual assaults, 0. We had residential checks of 205, alarm calls, 5, business checks was 806, and welfare checks was 0. That's
Okay.
all I have.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Moving on to City Administrator Mike Cran.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week we've been waiting on High Tide to complete a more extensive survey for the needs of Colliers to do the needs study for the repaving of Narcissus and any associated necessary drainage work. We got that data late last week, and it's been forwarded to Colliers, so they're working through that now. If you've looked around the island over the last week, you've seen that Earthworks has been here. I had them come out and kind of do a site survey with me to preempt storm season by cutting down any dead trees we find on city properties and rights of way, and then trimming some of the ones that if we get a big blow, they're just going to lose limbs and they're going to be blowing around anyway. So hopefully that'll help if we do get a storm by limiting the amount of debris we have to collect, especially from the city rights of way. And I also had them come out and add the beds here at the clubhouse to our existing contract. But it looks a lot better. So the trees in the front of the clubhouse, if you haven't noticed those, they look great. Centerpoint has also been out, and they are still taking down some trees that are imperiling some of the power lines. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the possible damages we have if we have a storm. The Galveston County Commissioners Court should have an item on their July 7th agenda to deed Tyndall Road to Clear Lake Shores. If any of you weren't here when I briefed last time, we don't actually own that roadway. And so since we've been maintaining it, we probably should, and the county doesn't maintain it either, so they don't want to. Each of you should have a packet in front of you that Cheryl distributed that has the development schedule for the fiscal year 2026 budget and all of the dates associated with that. So if you can look through that at your leisure and get back to us quickly if you have any conflicts so that we can reschedule if the need arises. Thanks. That's all I have, Mayor.
Mike, I sent you an email regarding some things, budget. Do you want me to fill this out so Cheryl has that information too? Budget and the email I sent about PD? looking at
No,
numbers?
you don't need to add that in there.
Okay.
I'm working on that.
Okay,
And I've already informed Cheryl about it.
okay.
That all you got? Well, that was nice and easy. All right. We will move on to public comments. At this time, any person with city-related business may speak to the city council. If the topic of discussion is related to an item on the agenda, the comments may be made now or at the time the agenda item is discussed. If the topic of discussion is not related to an item on the agenda, the city council cannot deliberate or take any action at this time. Comments from the public should be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per individual, and there be no yielding of time. Would anyone like to address the city council? Hold on, David. Don't be in such a hurry. No? No one? Nathan, you got anything? You stood up. Oh, okay. Just curious. All right. With no one wanting to speak to council, we'll close the public comments, and we'll move on to item number 6, the consent agenda, A through F. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So, Mayor, I'd like to pull items E, F, G, and I think it's supposed to be H. It says the second F, but E, F, G, if my alphabet is correct, should be H, correct?
E, F, G?
The last four items I'd like to pull for discussion.
1, 2, 3.
E, F, G, there's two Fs, so I think it's supposed to be H.
Oh, okay. All right. So you'd like to pull them and discuss those tonight?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion by Rick, got a second by Amanda. Any discussion on those four items? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimous. We'll open up discussion for these items now. Okay, Amanda, what are your questions?
Okay, so I had to look at this closely because there's a lot of swapping back and forth between the Nichols and the Kempels, and Mike and I spoke this morning, and I'm still not convinced that we can do this as it is. So the Nichols properties are tied to the address of 115 Queen, and it says / lot 430709. Our ordinance states you can't have more than 40 linear feet of total waterfront per residential property. So A, my question is, which waterfront properties go with which with which waterfront leases, A, and then B, our ordinance states, if the proposed transferee owns only a vacant lot, the proposed transferee must complete construction of a residential structure within 12 months of the transfer or forfeit said lease pursuant to the procedures in subsection D. So does that mean, do I understand that to be like if we're transferring this waterfront to this owner who owns an empty lot, he has to build on that empty lot within 12 months?
That's not correct, actually. If the only thing he owns is an empty lot and not a primary residence, then he has to build on it.
The only thing.
Yes. If
Okay.
the owner has the primary residence here, that's the first test. They have to have the primary.
Which is 115 Queen, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we're limited to 40 feet of linear waterfront per property, associated property, but they have to have the primary residence to start with.
Correct.
And we do have multiple people that own more than 40 feet that are based on having a primary residence and other properties that they don't live on necessarily, but other lots within the city. And Angie, please correct me if I'm stumbling out of the lane here.
So we don't have to identify what waterfront lots go with what property?
No. We don't track it that way. We do require that they have a primary residence, and then as long as they own no more than 40 linear feet per lot beyond that primary residence, or plus the primary residence and then beyond, then we have several like that. Historically, we have a bunch. So that's the way the city has interpreted it from its inception, is my understanding.
No, we changed this to the 40 linear feet per residential property probably 12 or 13 years ago so that people couldn't stack it up. So I guess it's just a matter of interpretation, because I feel like we're giving somebody something that our ordinance says we can't do.
So the question I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The question I would have on that would be if we don't put each waterfront to an actual associated piece of property. So let's say that they've got two lots and they own 60 feet. Or let's say own a house and a lot. What happens in the future if they decide to sell that lot? Now they only have one property and they've got 60 feet. And shouldn't there be, say, 20 feet of that would go with the lot that was being sold? Or does that count into the grandfather clause that, but I thought that was if we had it initially before the ordinance was enacted, about 40 feet per property. Just curious.
But just because you own a property with waterfront doesn't mean if you sell your property that you have to sell your waterfront with it. Like, I could sell my house and I could then transfer my waterfront to you, even though you're not buying my house.
Yeah, you could sell it.
I can sell it to somebody else, so.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, let's say they decide to sell that lot, and now they've got more than 40 feet in just one property on the island.
Oh, I see
That's
you're
what I'm
saying.
going with.
So let me ask a question to Angie. I'm glad you're here tonight.
She's like, yeah, so am I. Great.
So I was in my office and heard some of this going on. From what I understand, you got Brian Kemple, Matthew, Brian Kemple, and Matthew. So what they were trying to do is put their properties together instead of separate, right? So did they both own the same amount of property they're going to own now when this started? Or is one gaining more and one losing? Is that a factor, or is it just switching locations so they're together?
And they have that split form.
Right.
He's taken 10 feet off of one of them to move it together.
I got you.
So they're bringing them together, but then there's also a waterfront lot that they're splitting, and the Nichols are taking 10 feet of that, correct? Yes. 128A and 128B. Right, these two?
Right.
Yeah.
So should we,
So how many feet will they have each for one residence?
Well, Nichols will end up with 50-something, with 50-something. The Kemples are still, they'll be 25, 30, they'll be over too, right? No. Yes. Well, Sorry, my math is not mathing. I just, if we feel like we're doing it the right way, then okay. This is the waterfront property is a sticky issue for me because I want to make sure that somebody's not sitting on an empty lot just to have waterfront property in Clear Lake Shores. I don't think that's right, so I just had to ask.
Can I make a suggestion?
Uh-huh.
If you would like, I can get with the city attorney tomorrow, and we can talk about the interpretations and how they have been historically on the waterfront lease agreements and the ordinance and how they coincide or don't. I do have some problems with the waterfront lease agreement verbiage, and I don't know if the city attorney's ever had a chance to sit there and thoroughly peruse it. But if you can let me and Dick discuss it and make sure we're on the same page, that we have a viable answer for you and that we're all thinking the same way.
That's fine, thank you.
If you want to just defer it to another meeting,
Sure.
so you just want to pull this and bring it back at another meeting?
we can if that's what council would like to do, absolutely.
I would.
Okay,
I'd feel more
well, then,
comfortable that way.
we need
Thank
a
you,
motion for
Mike.
that, right?
That'd be a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table consent agenda items, whatever the last four.
TFGH.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion by Amanda, got a second by Jeff. All in favor? Okay, motion passes unanimous. We will move on. Let me get all this straightened out here. Get all that off my plate. That's what I meant to bring. All right. Okay, moving on. We will move on to old business. Discussion of possible action may be taken on the following items. A, approve clubhouse revised rental rates and policies. Mike Cram.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on the workshop, we made the requested changes that would be in the minutes from that workshop. I wanted to point out just a couple of things, just so that council's comfortable completely with it, because we've been over this several times. I want to make sure there were no misunderstandings. We included in the alcohol and large parties that you're responsible for contacting the police department to schedule the officers with the chief of police no later than 2 weeks prior to the event. I did discuss that with the chief of police after the workshop, and yes, he likes that. Procedures for reserving the clubhouse, we changed that, or we added something to that so that it states reservations must be made at least 7 days in advance of the date of use if police security is not required, and 2 weeks in advance of if police security is required. And then we also added in, for certain events such as weddings, reunions, milestone birthdays, etc., the city administrator may approve reservations up to 6 months in advance. For most events, however, reservations will be made no more than 90 days in advance. And that comes from some discussions we've had in the past, or I've had in the past with some of you and other people about how do you plan, people don't plan weddings and that kind of thing usually within 90 days. So the hours of use, we just changed the verbiage in that to where rental for the clubhouse is 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. All activities must cease and cleanup must be completed by 10 p.m. No exceptions. Any renter failing to vacate the clubhouse at the designated time shall forfeit the entire damaged security deposit. The renter is responsible for ensuring the facility is in its original order immediately after use. And then the next change that we incorporated was the Clear Lake Shores Yacht Club. And that states that the Clear Lake Shores Yacht Club is exempt from paying rental fees for the use of the clubhouse for their monthly membership meetings. For all other events, the Clear Lake Shores Yacht Club will be charged at the same rate shown for other nonprofit entities. Moving on, we discussed what if we don't have an officer available to work an event. I discussed that with the chief, and so we added a clause that says you're required to employ a uniformed Clear Lake Shores police officer or other licensed police officer approved by the Clear Lake Shores police chief to provide security. And then we added something into the parking, and we didn't put the map in here, but the map was a suggestion just as a handout. But for this, we didn't think the map was necessary. But we did add just a little clause that says, it already mentioned Stewart Elementary School, if you have written permission, or shuttle attendees from the city-owned lots adjacent to Marina Bay FM 2094. So all of those changes were incorporated as this is now.
I'll move to approve the clubhouse revised rental rates and policies.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Amanda, got a second by Ed. Any more discussion on that item?
Is there
Good
anywhere in
job
here?
capturing it all, Mike.
What's that?
I said good job capturing it all.
Yeah. So the only thing, I would like to see just added to, I guess we had talked about it, I don't know if it was just left out, that for the police officers, I know it's in the rental agreement, but it's not on the procedures, is that the payment for the police officer is supposed to be in cash the night of the event.
It is in that third paragraph, that first large paragraph under alcohol and large parties. We added it in there. I just forgot to mention it. The entire payment to the officer must be paid in cash.
Okay.
So
All right,
now
cool.
it's
Thank
in
you.
the policies too.
All right.
All right.
Appreciate your work on that. Thanks, Mike.
Any more discussion?
One other thing, I did put a clause in here about no open flames as well, except for sterno-type heating devices under chafing dishes, that kind of thing.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. We'll move on to item B. Or, I'm sorry, 8, new business, item A. Ordinance 2025-05, an ordinance annexing the hereinafter described territory to the city of Clear Lake Shores, Galveston County, and extending the boundary limits of said city so as to include said hereinafter described by property within the said city limits and granting to all the inhabitants of said property all the rights and privileges of other citizens and binding said inhabitants by all the facts, ordinances, resolutions, and regulations of said city, and adopting a service plan or agreement, providing for severability, providing for repealing savings clause, providing for an effective date, and providing for an Open Meetings Act clause. Whew, that was a mouthful. You're up, Mike.
Since the guy next to you wrote the mouthful, I'm going to defer to him.
Hey, Nathan, can you...
Yeah, I didn't make that easy
remove him
for you,
for
did
me?
I? So this is the last step in annexing Drawer Road. So this is the ordinance that you need to pass. that actually officially makes it annexed into the city of Clear Lake Shores, and also you're adopting the service plan that went along with that.
So this entire action or exercise is to fulfill a promise that we made to council or to the county at the time this roadway project was actually completed. And we're just now closing that loop.
Yes.
I'll move to approve ordinance 2025-05.
Okay, got a motion by
I'll
Amanda.
second.
Got a second by Jeff. Any discussion on the item? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous. That'll bring us to number 8, item B. Mike asked me if we can pull this. There's still some talking that he and Angie are trying to work through on making sure everything is perfect on that ordinance, so we would like to pull that one. Need a motion to do that? Okay, anyone want a motion for that, please?
Make a motion, we,
To the next
We're just-
meeting?
we're just gonna
Is that
table
meeting
it.
till the next meeting, Mike, or?
I would rather you choose just to pull it from the agenda right now.
Okay.
Angie, it's a wonderful thing to work with smart people who keep you out of trouble. And Angie seems very timid, but believe me, she is not. And
I second that.
she beat me up about this one and some things I hadn't considered. And then she accused me of using my dad voice. That made me feel terrible. But the more I reflected on it, the more I realized I'm really grateful that I work with smart people, and Angie and Cheryl both keep me straight. So I would ask that you just pull the item right now.
okay, well, I'll make a motion, we pull the table, item B, ordinance 2025-06.
Okay, got a motion by Jeff,
I'll second.
got a second by Rick. Any discussion?
Way to
All-
go, Angie.
All in favor? Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to item C, appoint an alternate to HGAC Houston Galveston Area Council due to the resignation of Alex Scanlon. So I believe, Amanda, you're still our main designee there. Alex was the backup person in case Amanda couldn't make it, so we need someone to step up and do that job.
There's one meeting a year that I usually attend, and if I can't, then the alternate has that option. So it's not a lot of time. Just saying.
That
Many
sounded
years-
like a sales pitch.
Many years ago, I would attend these, so.
Oh, are you volunteering?
I am
I
volunteering.
will nominate Susan Baker to be the alternate
There we
to
go. There
Nominating me.
HGAC.
I'll second
we have a
that.
nomination.
Yeah.
Would you accept that nomination, Susan?
I do.
Okay, do we have a motion to appoint Susan then?
Oh, that's my motion.
Oh, okay.
And I'll second.
Got a motion by Amanda.
I'll second.
Sorry, I didn't say
Second by
motion.
Jeff. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Hurry up before she changes her mind. Okay, motion
Thank you,
passes
Susan.
unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to appoint a council liaison to Roads and Drainage Committee to fill the vacancy left by Alex Cannon. Man, he left a whole lot of stuff vacant, didn't he? So we need someone to be the liaison to Roads and Drainage. I did it for a while, and then Alex was on the committee, then he was off the committee, some other people stepped up, so he became the liaison. So they do meet, Mike, once a month?
Typically once a month if we have anything worth discussing. There's not always something on the agenda. Sometimes we defer the meeting.
Well, and used to, the meetings lasted pretty long, now they're pretty short.
David and I try to direct them to be right at an hour.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
Do we have anyone that wants to volunteer for that job? Okay, I'll volunteer to go back on it since y'all don't.
Considering, they're considering for an open position, I think.
Okay, all right, I nominate myself.
All right, then
I'll second.
I can't make a motion, all I can do is
I make a
nominate
motion,
myself.
we nominate Randy
There you go.
Cronister as the,
Better hurry, I'm about to change my mind.
as the liaison for the Roads and Drainage Committee to fill the vacancy left by Alex Scanlon.
Okay, and I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion by Rick, got a second by Jeff. All in favor? Man, motion passed unanimous. Gee whiz. All right, Moving on to item E, reappoint Richard Cope Jr. as the presiding judge of Clear Lake Shores Municipal Court for a 2-year term to expire August 1st, 2027. We have a motion on that. We better catch that one before he changes his mind, too.
I would make a motion to reappoint Richard Cope Jr. as the presiding judge for the Clear Lake Shores Municipal Court for a 2-year term that expires August 1st, 2027.
Okay?
I'll second.
Have a motion by Rick, got a second by Amanda. All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Moving on to item F, consideration of possible action to approve task order number 8, Narcissus Roadway drainage improvements for engineering, design, and project management and administration with Colliers Engineering and Design in the amount of $61,650. Mike Cram.
Okay, so there is one misstated portion of that. It is not for project management. It is for all the other things, but Angie, if you can make a note of that one. Project management will be a separate thing and it'll be included with the actual roadway project. I have Guillermo here if council has any questions about what all this entails. We did include it in the packet if there's anything you don't understand or if there are any questions that you have regarding it.
I will say this is a roads and drainage project that when I was the liaison before, we had talked about over and over about doing, and then some other things came up that jumped in front of that. Looking at replacing the bridge and doing a lot of work on the bridge kind of slowed that down. Now that we have a bridge that's coming and paid for, I believe at the direction of most of the people on roads and drainage, they're getting back to this project. And I believe Mike is kind of spearheading that to move forward. Is that not right?
Yes, sir. And we had some pretty lengthy discussion, and we met with Colliers. We met with Alex before he resigned and moved, and just to make sure we're on the same page about what the project scope will be. There are some infrastructure matters associated with it, being cross sections of drainage conduit underground that will probably need work. So those pieces will be more in-depth. One of the things Colliers is doing is a preliminary design needs to where we don't overdo it where we don't need to. A lot of that roadway and that road bed is solid, and so we can probably just mill and overlay a lot of it, but there will be sections that will require deeper work, and then we will have some associated drainage issue corrections as their study presents.
Yeah, so we're not just fixing the road, we are fixing all the drainage problems.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the EEOC settlement under the terms and conditions discussed in executive session.
All right, got a motion by Rick.
I'll second.
Got a second by Jeff. Or was that Ed? No, Jeff? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous. We will close the meeting at 7:45 p.m.